I feel like if you make any kind of JoJo related videos on this platform, this is a list you kind of have to do at some point. Everyone's got a favorite, and everyone's got a least favorite. Enough child's play, it's time for the dog to weigh in. Here is my list of all 8 JoJo parts ranked from worst to best. Not gonna rank part 9 yet because it's way too early for me to give it a fair ranking. And remember, if this list upsets you, just keep in mind that this list is entirely objective and my opinion is always right. Holy moly, do I not like Phantom Blood. The first part of JoJo is without a doubt the worst one. Part 1 is straight up stinky garbage. I don't know what it was like serializing a series in Shonen in the 80s, but nowadays a couple bad chapters is enough justification to can a new upcoming manga series forever. So tell me, how in the heck, how in the keck did Phantom Blood manage to run for 11 chapters? Okay, that's not so bad. Okay, I might be exaggerating a little, but it's just to emphasize my point that I do not like part 1. The story doesn't interest me. Every character besides Dio is so boring and uninteresting. I cannot stand flawless characters. They bore me so much. Hamon is so stupid. It's inconsistent, limited, and doesn't leave any room for creativity. Some people genuinely want to see Hamon return, and that just baffles my mind. You are dumb. Spin literally is just Hamon done better. I want to seal up Jonathan, Hamon, and Phantom Blood as a whole and bury it deep underground and never have to think of it again. I never read the part 1 manga. I've watched the anime 3 times across many years, and even that was 3 times too many. It's only like 8 episodes, but I couldn't even bring myself to sit through it, so it took me like 3 months to watch it. Phantom Blood. I don't even care about Speedwagon. Battle tendency is better. I don't dislike it the way I do Phantom Blood, but I'm not crazy about it either. Joseph Joestar is infinitely better as a protagonist than Jonah Mid Snooze Star. Battle tendency does everything better than Phantom Blood. Protagonist, characters, fights, story. The only thing I will give Phantom Blood is that I like Dio more than I did the Pillarmen. The Pillarmen are the second worst main villain in the series. I'm just not fond of the whole evil for the sake of evil shtick that they have going on. Like, whoop-de-doo, you're a big sexy man, but you have severe penis envy and now you want to kill all humans. I get it, dude, I've been there. The worst part about Battle Tendency is that it's still tied down by the crappy Hamon system. Hamon is somehow still the primary power system. It still sucks, but admittedly, it does suck a little bit less than it did in part 1. 2 parts in, and Araki was already stretching Hamon to its absolute limits. If the series were to go on, Hamon needs to either go away or have a huge overhaul. In conclusion, Phantom Blood bad, Battle Tendency, it's alright. I'm starting to see a pattern here. Stardust Crusaders is a huge leap forward in quality from the first 2 parts, and that's almost exclusively because of stands. I actually think part 2 does a lot of things quite a bit better than part 3, such as narrative, pacing, and characters, but Hamon was so bad it actually held part 2 behind part 3 on this list. Part 3 has the introduction of the stand system, and this was a breath of fresh air. Thank God! Seriously, if stands weren't introduced here and we were subjugated to another part of Hamon, I probably would have just dropped the series entirely. It's crazy too. Stands were still in their development stage at this time, and most of the most boring stands and stand encounters in the entire series happen in part 3. Like seriously, who remembers the car stand? But I will die on the hill that even the worst stand encounters I still enjoy more than the best Hamon fights. The biggest issue with part 3 is the pacing. If we go by manga, the part 3 manga is actually shorter than parts 4, 5, and 6. But if we go by anime episodes, part 3 is actually longer than parts 4, 5, and 6. That just goes to show how much David Productions wanted to really milk part 3 for all it's worth. How can I blame them? I too love money. Honestly, I didn't get the same fatigue I know a lot of people do going through part 3. Like seriously, you had no issue going through Jonathan Joestar, but part 3 is where it starts to get too hard for you to watch. Jotaro he's aight. Specifically talking about part 3 Jotaro and excluding anything from him in future parts, I think he does alright as a protagonist, especially in a story like Stardust Crusaders. I didn't like him as much as I did Joseph in part 2, and I do think some Redditors like to overanalyze him to make him seem much deeper than he actually is. But I don't think part 3's story needed such a complex main character. Jotaro doesn't even go through a proper character arc, but like, would Stardust Crusaders really be that much better if he did? I don't really think so. Jotaro does the silent, stoic, badass archetype really well. I usually can't stand those characters, but Jotaro pulls it off. He really doesn't need Thorfinn levels of character development. In fact, none of the Crusaders are anything more than walking cardboard cutouts except for maybe Polnareff. But oh my god, is it bad with Kakyoin. This guy is popular? What? This guy stinks! Probably up there as one of my least favorite characters in the entire series. Every time this guy talks, I want to go and take a nap. Doctors prescribe Kakyoin scenes for narcosis. Ugh. The video's been pretty negative so far, but that's because we're still in the worst end of the list. All the parts further down the list I feel much more positively towards, such as... This part gets too much hate. I genuinely think there's some deep-rooted misogyny in the JoJo community. That's right, the woke mob finally got to Chewy Dog 1. Like, admit it, you don't hate Stone Ocean, you just hate women. I do think of all the parts, Stone Ocean is the most fun part to make fun of. Making fun of part 1 is too easy. It's beating a dead horse, there's no fun to it. But making fun of Stone Ocean is art. A real bonding experience. Stone Ocean is the worst of the pretty good parts. I think a problem not enough people talk about in Stone Ocean is the lack of chemistry between the cast. Anasui, Hermes, Emporio, they're all decent characters, a lot better than any of the Crusaders, but the Crusaders had this me and the boys energy that carried all of them. Part 5 is also a great example of a bunch of characters with all amazing chemistry. The Stone Ocean crew has the worst chemistry of any of the Joe squads. A lot of them just feel so disconnected from each other, they don't feel like one unified group. And it doesn't help that they're never all together, they're always separated. Name me a scene where Hermes is interacting with Weather Report. Jojolion is a great protagonist. She is the only female protagonist and the first protagonist to undergo any kind of development during the part. Only took 6 parts, eh? At the beginning of part 6, Jojolion is a limp soy cuck femcel, but by the end is a ripped, stoic female Giga Chad Jotaro. I don't know about you, but I like it when I can visually see how the events of this story changes a protagonist. Tell me how Giorno and Josuke are any different at the end of their parts compared to the beginning. Trick question, Josuke is now 3 months older. I also really like Pucci. Parts 1 through 5 all had evil villains who only had their own best interests in mind, and Pucci is a nice break from the status quo. He is a villain who doesn't think he is the villain. Pucci with all his heart believes that he is the hero, and the heaven plan really is in humanity's best interest. And you know what? I kinda get him. Call me crazy, but I might be down with the heaven plan in real life. Just saying. Another issue with Stone Ocean is by part 6, the traditional JoJo formula had started getting stale. To me, I always thought parts 4, 5, and 6 all feel very structurally similar, and although it's not a bad structure, it's a bit tiring 3 parts in a row. And I'm sure Araki felt that fatigue too, hence the new radical direction starting from part 7. Finally, I gotta mention that Stone Ocean has the worst stretch in a JoJo part since like part 3. Neither part 4 or part 5 have a stretch as bad as the Dragon's Dream, Yo-Yo Ma, and Green Baby arcs back to back to back. Like, one bad fight every once in a while, fine. But 3 in a row, Jesus Christ, end me. Oh, and don't get me started on Yo-Yo Ma. Oh, my blood is boiling. This fight sucks so much donkey balls on so many levels, it's probably my most hated fight in the entire franchise. But that's a video for another day. Yeah, Mafia time, baby! We love Mafia. We love committing crime. We love laundering money and dealing drugs. Golden Wind is one of the two most culturally inspired JoJo parts. They all are to some degree, but Golden Wind, and another undisclosed part, really go all in on the full cultural experience. And what is more Italian than drugs, fishing, and abusive fathers? Part 5 is like Part 3 but good. Both have that me and the boys on a road trip vibe, but Part 5's road trip is just executed better. Giorno is a bit of a wet blanket, but I don't even mind because we get Bruno, one of the best characters in the entire series, and he completely makes up for Giorno's blandness. In fact, all of the side characters in Part 5 are great. A lot better than the Crusaders, at least. And the Part 5 crew has the best chemistry of any of the crews in the series. These guys are day one Gs who will ride or die for their big mama Bruno. Even Fugo is great, and this guy sucks. The fights are great, the pacing is great, the characters are great, the villain is okay. Doppio is great, and the Doppio-Diavolo dynamic is really fun and unique, but Diavolo on his own, he feels like Lay's original. He's got no flavor. Great part. Guys, I gotta level with you on this one. If it weren't for Yoshikage Kira, this part would have been way further down the list. Yoshikage Kira is the best thing to happen to the JoJo series since the introduction of stands. Yoshikage Kira cured my depression. Moriocho Radio? Morning mo oh ayo oh no oh wayo. There's a scene where some poor sap calls into Moriocho Radio and says his girlfriend is ignoring his calls after he bought her a nice ruby ring. And then a few episodes later, there's a scene with a severed hand with a ruby ring, the attention to detail given to Yoshikage Kira. Ah, ha, ha. The attention to detail given to Yoshikage Kira does not get enough credit. To be fair, most of this wasn't in the manga and was only retroactively added in the anime. But like, come on. Josuke walks by him on the street way before he's even introduced as a character. How cool is that? And then it happens again. It's the little things, the little attention to detail that makes rewatches so fun. Josuke is fun. It's nice seeing a JoJo protagonist actually act their age for once. And come on. The Pompadour? Iconic. Jotaro is back with a supporting role, and I actually like him a lot better as a supporting/mentor role than a protagonist. We also get Jotaro's hardest outfit. The only problems I have with this part is everything pre-Yoshikage Kira is worse than part 5 and 6 first half. But like, for him I'm willing to let it slide. The Bites the Dust arc is my favorite arc in the entire series. Hayato sucks though. I don't like cringe Nene babies. Why is he so smart? He's like an elementary school student. It's unrealistic how smart and mature this kid is. Jobin turns himself into a bus. Funniest I've ever seen. Jojolion is the final finished part of JoJo, and it's also the longest part. Part 8 is a reboot of Part 4, and a better Part 4 at that. Early Jojolion is my favorite stretch of JoJo. Banger fights after banger story after banger characters with banger pacing. It's great. In fact, the very first fight in Jojolion is one of my favorite fights in the whole series. What a way to start a new part off strong. Jojolion also has the best continuing threads from the previous part. We all know how each JoJo part carries over ideas, characters, or story beats from previous parts. But how Araki wrote Part 8's tie-ins to Part 7 is genius and super interesting. Part 8 takes place over 100 years after Part 7, yet it still feels like a sequel to Part 7. From the direct callbacks, such as Yasuho reading a Wikipedia article on Johnny Joestar, to the subtle references, such as the walleyes of Morio, which seem to have been created by the rotational energy from Tusk shot off 100 years prior. Unfortunately, I think the second half of Jojolion kinda drops the ball. The main villain of Jojolion is the worst villain in the entire series, somehow even more boring than Cars. But I won't get into that here. I have a whole video ranting about this soylent drinking e-boy. Gappy is the return of funny JoJo protagonists, just like Joseph was in part 2. And come on, be real. The sailor drip? The fashion in JoJo has gotten so out of control that even characters in Jojolion point out how weird it is that he's just walking around Morio dressed as a sailor. I actually think the highs of Jojolion are even higher than the highs of my most favorite part, but the reason it's still number 2 is because the lows of Jojolion are much lower than my favorite part. Jojolion lacks consistency in its quality. We have arcs like Vitamin C and Killer Queen, which is some of the best storytelling Araki has ever done, and then we get the Wonder of Pooh arc. And just like Pooh, my faith in humanity goes down the toilet. But with all this Jojolion praise, what part can be even better? In fact, what part can beat every other part on this list? There is no doubt in my mind that the best part in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is... Steel Ball Run's greatest strength is being a consistently great manga from beginning to end. It's not perfect, of course, and I do have issues with it, but I have the least negative things to say about Part 7 than any other JoJo part. The story, the fights, the stands, the characters, the chemistry, the world building, the art, the creativity, the passion. It's all Araki's best. Who doesn't love good old gunslinging, moonshine sipping, lasso swinging American cowboys? Red Dead anime. Valentine's patriotism is infectious. I'm not even American, but goddamn, Part 7 makes me want to go celebrate the 4th of July with a beer in one hand and a 12 gauge in the other. Steel Ball Run's got the spin, the corpse, blessings of the earth, flow, horse racing, gambling, adultery, the King of Naples, Genghis Khan's descendant, and the best iteration of Dio, and Dino AIDS. What isn't there to love? Part 7 is the next part to get animated, and a lot of the community is getting a little antsy. A lot of people think David Productions is just gonna stop after Part 6, after getting this far. With a financially successful adaptation, they're just gonna give up. No. But we're definitely gonna have to wait at least a couple more years. If you're an anime only who recently just finished Stone Ocean but haven't read Steel Ball Run yet, what are you? What, you afraid of a little reading? Just pick up Steel Ball Run. Boo-hoo, I have to read. Yeah, it's called subtitles and you would have to read them anyways. God! Okay, this is the list. Bye.